Welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. I'm your host, Amy Dash. You were just listening to motion hearings for the trial of Nevada versus Janet Solander. She is charged with a host of charges related to abusing foster children that were in her care. And that trial is going to start today. We are expecting openings to start around 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. But now I want to welcome a guest who's with me on Skype, actually. His name is Officer Charlie Wilkie, and he's from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Officer Wilkie, are you there?
How are you, Amy?
Good. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, you are the officer who, along with your amazing canine Gator, discovered 8-year-old Cherish Perrywinkle's body. Where are you now, Officer Wilkie?
I'm here at the location where we located Cherish's body back in June of 2013.
You went back to that location to show us?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. So just take us through what happened that day before you show us exactly where you found her body. This is obviously a heartbreaking story. It was keeping me up last night as I was reviewing material to do this interview with you today. To have this poor little girl, 8-year-old girl, with her mother and sister at the Walmart, a poor family that was lured in by this man who pretended to be a good Samaritan and promised to buy the children clothes. And then when he said he was going to get little Cherish something to eat at the front of the Walmart, the two of them disappeared, and she was later found by you. We know the rest of the story. You know, Donald Smith was convicted. It took the jury just about 14 or 15 minutes, I think,
correct,
to convict
yes.
him. And so we're going into the penalty phase. But how did you get involved in this case? Take us through what happened first.
Well, we started out that morning. We started our shift at 5 in the morning, and I was walking out to the kennel to get Gator out, to get him in a car, and the Amber Alert went out. And so I'm listening to the Amber Alert, and they're describing Cherish, and they're describing Donald Smith, and I looked at Gator, and I said, well, this is what we're going to be working on today. And so we loaded up in the car, and we started our shift, and we started working on leads and working with other officers to try to develop any kind of intel we could as to try to locate him. I actually drove all the way out to the Walmart that morning, retraced steps, looking anywhere around that area that where she might be located. And then eventually, just a few hours later, about 8:30 or so, an officer, Tina Henson, was up on the highway on I-95 working a traffic crash, and the van drove right past her.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
And so how did you know
Tina,
that
being
that was
very
the
alert,
van?
told the drivers that someone else would come and finish the report, and she got in behind the van and notified dispatch, and the dispatch notified me that they were behind the van and it was coming south on I-95.
And Charlie, how did you know that that was the van? The mother had explained that he was driving a white van, I assume?
No, ma'am. We had another officer, Elena Gonzalez, had done a great piece of work, and she had taken a database and ran it and was looking for people around that age bracket that were sexual offenders and white males, and come upon his picture. And then checked the database for registered vehicles, and it came up with a Dodge van.
Wow.
And then she sent a picture over, and Rain Perrywinkle, the mom, positively identified Donald as being who the man was that had befriended her and her children at the Walmart, well, the dollar store to start with, and then the Walmart. So we had the tag number to verify that when Tina got behind the vehicle, that she was indeed behind the correct vehicle.
And then, so you come upon the vehicle. What happens next?
I come up beside the vehicle so I can get up to speed, and I can see him. He's still wearing the same shirt from the Bolo picture I had seen, so there's no doubt in my mind we had the right person. And I drift in behind him, and it's kind of dual purpose. One, so I can see what's going on and maybe how many people are in there, and two, it lets them know that I'm a canine unit, and so that if it does get into a pursuit or some type of foot pursuit, that they already know that the dog's already there. So hopefully that's a deterrent. So then I drift in behind him, and we go for a distance, and we had other officers shutting off the exits and entrance ramps along 95 to make sure that no one was up on the highway going south on 95 through downtown Jacksonville except us and him, and that's exactly how it played out. So we picked a spot where there was an overpass to eliminate the avenues of maybe a foot pursuit, and we initiated our emergency equipment. Initially, he sped up for just a moment, maybe 15 seconds or so, got up to probably 75, 80 miles an hour, and then immediately slowed back down and pulled over to the right-hand lane and stopped his vehicle and started to comply with our orders.
So when you came upon the suspect, you were one of the first officers to make physical contact with him. And what
Correct.
resulted from that?
Well, what happened was we ordered him back, and I did not have Gator out because of the fact that we were on an overpass, and had he chose to jump off the side of the overpass to commit suicide, Gator would have probably followed him. So I left him in the car for that moment and ordered him back, and we ordered him down on his knees. And when I went up to handcuff him, I do a light cursory search around the middle of his waist area just to make sure we didn't miss a weapon as he's walking back to us before I pass him off to another officer. And when I did that, my hand was soaking wet when I touched his pants. I mean, I actually had water on my hands, not just a damp feeling. I actually had water on my hands.
So what did that indicate to you, Officer Wilkie? This became a clue in your pursuit of trying to find this missing child.
Absolutely, absolutely. Immediately, I said, "Oh my God, she's in the water," and he was handcuffed and he's facing away from me, his head straight ahead. But he turned and looked at me very abruptly, and caught himself doing it. And then he turned back around, and I said, "Oh my God," I knew right then. I said that she's in water. That our chances of finding her at this point are probably, as far as being alive or being able to resuscitate, are probably going to be eliminated at this point.
But yet you were able to find her pretty quickly after. What led you to the spot where you are now?
Well, we had two great citizens that got involved that morning. They saw the Amber Alert go out on the news, and they remembered seeing a van that matched that description behind the church that I'm at now, the Highlands Baptist Church. And when they saw the bolo, they immediately called 911. A couple of them actually came over here and were yelling out Cherish's name, hoping that she was just in the woods and maybe lost. And so we got that information after I had handcuffed Donnie and put him in the car and searched the van. Then I was given this information of where the church was located at. And then I got up here as fast as I could and got out, and the detectives and the state attorneys was here, and they had already started a search of the area of the wood line. And I got out and said, "Where's the water?" And they're like, "What?" And I said, "Well, he's soaking wet. She's in the water." Wow. And they said, "Well, there's a creek on the other side of these woods." So with that information, I got Gator out, and he started what we call a track, and he tracks ground disturbance. So where you've walked versus where you haven't walked smells different to the dogs. And he immediately took me to the water. I could see a tree laying on its side. I could see the reeds and stuff just in front of me had all been pushed down because he had drug her out into the water. He didn't even carry her out. He had drug her out through the reeds and then shoved her up underneath a tree, and then placed pieces of asphalt, broken asphalt, and pieces of brick and cement, and then some tree limbs and stuff all over her to try to conceal her and keep her from moving from that location.
It must have been extremely traumatic for you. I know you do this for a living. You've been in law enforcement for 28 years. You actually just retired along with Gator. But coming upon a child like that, does it ever get any easier for you?
I don't think it does. I think that, everybody asks what happens, and I think you just turn into a dad. You turn into a normal person, and realizing that the police part of it's pretty much done. All I could do at that point was stand by with her, protect her from anything coming up, an alligator or anything like that, because we are in water, and make sure that we preserve the scene so that who did this heinous crime will be held accountable. It was very personal to me because she had the same dress on that my little girl wears or did wear.
Wow.
And there was only 2 years difference between them. They had the same long brown hair. And when I saw Cherish, she was facing away from me, and her hair was floating in the water. It's just one of those things you never forget. And there's not been a day since then that I don't think about it at some point.
It is just so heartbreaking. Kudos to you, though, because even though you have to deal with this difficult aspect of your job, you are bringing in closure to some families, and you have. I was reading that you've saved so many people's lives throughout the course of your career by doing the difficult work that you do.
Yes, ma'am. We're a big city, and we have big city crime. And I have chosen to stay in K-9. I was in K-9 for over 18 years, so we go to all the in progress stuff, and we unfortunately are privy to a lot of bad scenes and horrific things, images, and those type things. The true blessing I got out of this so far today, this morning, as a matter of fact, Cherish's older sister, who contacted me from Australia and sent me a thank you message on Facebook Messenger, and thanked me for the job that Gator and I had done, and to give their family some closure. And it was very heartfelt and very emotional for me this morning. I had just taken my little girl to school along with her older brother, and got back home, and that's what was waiting on me on the phone. So you like to think that you want to save the world. Obviously, you want to make everything right and make everything end with a happy ending. But unfortunately, in these type cases, the best thing you can do is help make sure that the person responsible gets prosecuted, because there's not much else you can do at that point.
Yeah. What do you think of this monster? I mean, does it amaze you that there are people out there who would be so inhumane, who would hurt children in this way? That
Yes,
there are
ma'am.
actually human beings that exist
I'm looking
like
at
this.
Donnie when we're on the stand, and Donald Smith is just, he's like staring through me. He just has this no emotion stare, and very, just I don't know, very creepy, in a way that they offered no defense. They didn't call any witnesses. Very little rebuttal. They rebutted a couple of my statements, and but yet you put the jury through all of this, and so now these poor jurors have all these horrific images in their minds that they're never going to get out. And so I don't know. Is it a defense strategy? I'm not sure, but I know it was an horrific time for everyone involved, from the sheriff's office, especially to the poor family, to Rain, the mom, to the other sisters. The older sister told me this morning that the two younger ones still talk about Cherish to this day. They've never forgotten her, and they think about her often, and comes up in conversation. So it's good to know that they've not.
And
she's
our
not
heart
gone
goes
away
out to
from
the
their
families.
minds.
I mean, this guy is pure evil. Before you go, can you show us around a little bit as to how you came upon the scene and where she was located?
Sure. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to just cut you off. But this is the scene behind the church. It's Highlands Baptist Church, and this is where there were a set of tire tracks that morning that the van had left. And then along this path here is where I cast Gator out along the edge of the tree line, and then he cut up right in through here and made his way over to the water. And when we got out to the water, I could see a very distinct path where Donald Smith had drug her body out to a tree. The tide's up this morning. It's a tidal creek that leads out to the river, and it's up so high this morning I couldn't even see the tree when I first got here, and it's still up high now. The day that I was here, 4.5 years ago, the water had receded some. The tide was starting to go out, and the tree was halfway exposed out of the water, and Cherish, of course, was underneath that. And by the time the ETs and the medical examiner and all that process was taking place, the tide had gone out completely. So the photographs that were shown in court had Cherish completely out of the water. So it was a different look than what I had that morning, but still obviously the same location.
So we can't see any deeper in there because you're saying the tide is up this morning, right?
Yes, it's. I can walk you in there a little bit.
Okay.
But it's the tide's up.
Is Gator leading the way? Can we see Gator?
But you can kind of see it.
I think we're losing Officer Wilkie, but we're going to try to get him back. It's a little bit choppy. Officer Wilkie, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep. We can see you.
There we go.
Can we see Gator real quick?
So no, I didn't bring him with me.
Oh, you didn't bring Gator. Okay.
I didn't have a vehicle.
Well, he's retired. He deserves a break.
So he's enjoying his retirement at home.
And we've got some pictures.
This is coming out to the riverbank. And so
all right, you're going to take us out to the riverbank. We're going to see if the Skype holds up and we're able to see anything.
If you can see down here, there's some bric-a-brac, there's some pieces of asphalt and stuff, and that's the kind of stuff that Donald Smith used. And then this is out to the marsh area where we're actually located her.
Let's go back to Officer Wilkie so we can see. That is where you found the body.
Yes, it's out here in the marsh of this creek.
Wow. Thank you so much, Officer Wilkie. As tragic,
You're welcome.
It is heartbreaking, and again, our hearts go out to her family, but I'm sure they're very grateful to you that you found the child ultimately, unfortunately with that result, but that she was found.
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you, and thank you for everything you've done over the course of 28 years for so many people.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that was Officer Charles Wilkie from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office taking us through the scene of how he came upon Cherish Perrywinkle's body and was able to return it to her heartbroken family. Now I just want to go back and play some hearings from the Nevada versus Janet Solander trial. We're expecting opening arguments to start around 1:30 Eastern Standard Time.